We got a nice snappy brush. It's really, really old. It's an old Princeton round. It even has a pencil in the tip. Don't know how I discovered that. So I'm gonna start out, I'm gonna wake up my paints. Got Scarlet Lake, Cad Red Dark. I forgot what that is. Rose Madder, Opera Rose, Ultramarine, and Sap Green. And I'm just going to do a really loose indication of where I want to put these geraniums. So I like kind of a big fat one here and a little one here pointing up. And then this one here is kind of pointing to the side. Do I want a couple more? Maybe so. Maybe a little guy here. And then we don't want even numbers, so I'm going to have another little one right here. So I'm going to start out. The trick is to start out with a really light red. You just want to kind of tap, and you want to leave some white too. I'm going to start with water on this one. And just sort of dance around. That's very light. Maybe too light. I also want to cover up my pencil marks. The reason I like this brush is it's kind of snappy. Some of the softer ones, like I'd say a Neptune, although it holds a lot of water, it doesn't make a really nice stamp shape. It just mushes. Technical terms. And I want to vary the sizes of the petals. And like a hydrangea, the geranium is made up of a bunch of little 4-petal flowers like this that fill up in the entire flower. So we're just loosely indicating that. In the past, the mistake I've made has been eliminating white space. The white space will help give lots of depth and dimension. So I'm going to take a little bit of just a tiny bit of my ultramarine and make a nice purpley red. A little bit more. To tap. I need a little bit more ultra. There we go. Tap in around the bottom. Light source is coming this way, so the underneath part is where you're going to see your shadows. I may not have made this purpley enough. I'm going to add a little bit more. Oh, that's pretty. All right, need to let that dry a little bit. Fortunately, it's pretty dry in here, so I'm gonna just grab a little Cad Red. So some of it's gonna bleed really nicely, and then some of it's where in the drier sections and retain the more petal shape. I like doing this in about 4 really sheer layers. Get a nice depth. And I don't want to cover up all of the really light petals, especially around outside of the flowers, because they'll tend to sit back in the background. Tap in a little bit more dark. It's kind of disappearing. There we go. This one's nice and barely damp. I personally really like the dark magenta geraniums and then the bright kind of orangey red, but these are classics. All right. Some dog hair. It's shedding season. There we go. I'm gonna grab some of my rose with a little bit more ultramarine, because I've lost some of my beautiful shadows down here. And I'm using 140-pound cold press arches. So it's a very thirsty paper. So a lot of this pigment's gonna get soaked right up. That's why it's nice to do these geraniums in layers. I'm gonna go in now. I've got some red dark, cad red dark. Bet you didn't know there were so many reds. And at this point, I'm gonna need to, I've got a puddle here, so I'm gonna dry my brush and lift it a little bit. I'm gonna need for this to dry. So I will be right back. All right, I'm back, and I'm adding some more Cad Red Deep. And some of these shapes are going to be a little bit more petal-ish. I'm using the brush as kind of a stamp. I've got a big water spot right here, but I'm going to make it work for us. That's where a puddle was. I'm relying pretty much on pure intuition, pretending like the brush has a life of its own. Now I want to add some more purpley tones, especially, oh, that's such a pretty color, the base area, and maybe a couple of spots to break up the reds. There we go. I think adding some of these rosy tones, first of all, it breaks the heat of all that red, but it also gives us some nice depth. So I'm going to let it dry once again before going in with some final dark red, more defined petals. One thing I also like to do, I've mushed some of the edges so that there's some real crisp edges, and then there's some mushy edges. It just softens things up. And I'm going to grab my sap green. I'm going to put it in the same well as my red, my cad red, because that'll knock some of the brightness out of the green. I'm going to take a smaller brush. I've got my size 6 round. Geraniums are pretty leggy, and the leaves don't start till further down. I'm just gonna turn this on its head. Sometimes it's easier to paint in a different direction, especially if you're a southpaw like me and you end up running your hand through your painting. Later on, I'll go back in and add some dark. But I'm letting gravity help me out. Okay. Getting some nice bleed going here. Encouraging it. There we go. Now, one last go round with the petals, but gotta wait for it to dry. So, things are pretty dry. I'm really liking this right here, so I'm going to grab some more of that. Maybe make it a little bit redder. And just finish up some of my do a little bit more dry brushing. Some slightly more petal specific shapes. This can cover a multitude of sins. Now, I was trying to remember what a geranium leaf looks like. It's a big, round, ruffly thing with a darker center, and they're usually much lower down on the plant. So I'm going to do these very loosely. And I'm going to start with a slightly more bluey green. And I'm bringing in a little bit of the red from above. Since I made a mess earlier, I'm just going to pretend like this is a leaf right here, instead of a giant left-hand print. The dog hair out. Remember, these are kind of ruffly. There's this one right here. Fall right over the top of the stems. This was a small one. And then I'm going to make some darker, bluier. There's some leaves that are going to be kind of in the background, shadow. Dark center area. Oh, I love how that's bleeding out. Tapping in some of that reddish green. Erase. Block out some of those stems. It's working nicely. Why not just take a little bit of the green? Got some interest up here. Add some just hit or miss taps of dark along a stem, add some nice shadow depths. I wonder if my head's in the picture. I forgot to connect this one. I want some dark bleed where they connect. I might have to stop. This is really pretty. What do you think? Should I add some splattering up top? I think I should. I think I should. And one thing I love to do is mush some of the splattering. So it almost looks like there's an indication of a pink background. There we go. I think I'm done.